It was in December of the year 612 BC that a child had been born in the village of Etam, just 3 miles south of Bethlehem in Judea. A descendant of the tribes of Judea, Levi, and Joseph, this child was named Hannah, after the mother of Samuel the prophet. Her birth took place about 358 years after the reign of David the king and some 110 years after the kingdom of Israel had been conquered and carried away into captivity by the Assyrians. Hannah was the physical aspect of my multidimensional soul who prepared the body through which I, Anna, chose to re-enter the drama of earth on the 23rd day of May in the year 596 BC. And a sore drama it was, for Babylon was now coming forth to rule the hearts of men and women who had forgotten their innocence before the Lord. Hi, and welcome to Empowered Spirit Healing. My name is Paula, and today I'm reading the very first episode of our new book for our spiritual book club, which is Anna, the Grandmother of Jesus by Claire Heartsong. And it is a message of wisdom and love. So I just wanted to read to the book, the dedication of the book. This book is dedicated to the return of the Divine Mother, birthing the compassionate Christ in every heart. May all beings know freedom and union. May all beings be at peace. In the oneness I am Om. And I just thought that was just really, really beautiful. So I wanted to share that. I'll just quickly share that I have read this book before. I listened to it via audio. And I also read a little bit of it on Kindle as well, but I bought this book in paperback just to have a physical version to read to you guys. And I was really, really touched with this story. I know it sounds silly, but when I read this, I just really felt like the Essenes, the way that they lived, their culture, it really felt like home when I read it. And I know some people might think that's crazy. Other people might just be like, yeah, you're probably remembering a past life. And yeah, maybe I did experience life as an Essene. Who knows? I think many of us have definitely had those kind of lives. We don't know. But it just is such a beautiful story, and I just really, really wanted to read this on my channel. So I hope that you're all going to enjoy it as much as I have. And yeah, I'll get started with the foreword. There are those among us who serve as celestial historians and storytellers, bringing to light inner perceptions long hidden within the human psyche, as well as information that helps explain our life on earth with its mysteries great and small. If it is higher consciousness you seek, we invite you to bring your spiritual nature and an open mind as we go journeying into non-traditional concepts that continue to influence human lives today. Anna was first introduced by SEE Publishing Company, part of the non-profit Share Foundation. She was an extraordinary, powerful woman who light conceived her daughter, Mary, and taught her the Essene way of life so Mary could fulfill her role as mother for the expected Messiah, Jesus. Although readers of the Edgar Cayce materials may know something of the Essenes and Anna's spiritual importance to Mary, her grandson, Jesus, Mary Magdalene, and others must wonder why Bibles and history books rarely mention her essential role. How is it possible that Anna has been forgotten or ignored by two major religions for so long? It is for this reason that we introduce you to Anna and a small, secretive group of Jews who deliberately created a holy community of light servers capable of supporting the divine plan known as the greatest story ever told. In looking at Judaic literature for an answer, we find that it totally ignores the vital role of Anna played in those profound biblical times before the birth of Jesus. Whether earlier mainstream Jews rejected the importance of the entire Essene group at large, or just Anna because she was a woman, it is not known. Perhaps like the Roman Catholic Church that eventually sainted Anna as Saint Anne, they were both merely ignorant of her true role in the Holy Land events of 2,000 years ago. Unbelievably, the recent Catholic encyclopedia dismisses Anna with the following comment: "Of the Mother of Our Lady, nothing is certainly known. Even for her name and that of husband Joachim, we have to depend upon the apocryphal Protevangelium of James." My apologies for pronouncing that very well. Which, though in its earliest forms is very ancient, is not a trustworthy document. Although officially sainted, Anna's importance seems greatly diluted within the Roman Catholic Church until later in the 6th century, when the Emperor Justinian I dedicated a shrine to her. Then in the early 700s, Pope Constantine is said to have introduced devotion to her in the church in Rome. Further silence about her life continues until the 14th and 15th centuries, when her popularity seems to have brightened again. This touching appreciation of Anna is artistically expressed by world-famous artist Leonardo da Vinci, 1425 to 1519, in his drawing entitled "The Virgin and Child with Saint Anne and Saint John the Baptist," now in the National Gallery in London. In this group portrait, Anna is shown just behind her daughter Mary's side, with Anna's hand obviously pointing upward to a sketch of the Holy City, perhaps acknowledging her recognition of the family's spiritual source, as well as the importance of the baby Jesus and John the Baptist. As the centuries passed and the Catholic Church's motives became more and more unethical, certain theologians and philosophers openly accused the Church and challenged their behaviors. As the Reformation movements continued their accusations, it was Frederick the Great himself in 1790 who wrote Jesus really was an Essene. He was imbued with Essene ethics. Less than a century later, as the religious questioning and further continued, Ernest Renan wrote a book suggesting that Christianity is an Essenism that has largely succeeded. Whatever the reasons for this scarcity of past information, we now invite you to open a new chapter in biblical history by meeting both Anna and the Essenes. It is time to acknowledge that a complex plan of assistance from celestial realms required incarnation of embodied spiritual volunteers to help anchor and fulfill the ancient prophecies of bringing a Messiah into physical life. It is our contention that Jesus' grandmother Anna willingly cooperated with many celestial beings to assist in the divine event of bringing Mary, Jesus, and Mary Magdalene and others onto planet Earth. However, only by having the disciplined and devoted members of the Essenes community at Mount Carmel as a receptive matrix of energy. Was this possible? Who were these secretive Essenes is the question. The only commentaries in the early Western world had about the existence of the Essenes came from classical writers such as Josephus, Philo, and Pliny the Elder. Unfortunately, although their comments are interesting, I believe these authors were describing a different Essene settlement at Qumran, not Anna's community in Mount Carmel. Although the Essenes had their common characteristics of living as a disciplined spiritual agricultural community of ascetic, reclusive, pacifist individuals divorced from the mainstream of social, political, and Judaic religious practice, there were major differences as well as commonalities. The Mount Carmel Essenes were said to maintain a strict ritual purity, to share their possessions in common, to work hard and keep no slaves. They did not seek pleasure and wealth, and they elected their own leaders from among themselves. Because they had strict dietary and health habits, refused to offer animal sacrifices as other Jews did, and used a solar, not a lunar calendar, they were considered very odd by their contemporaries. It was reputed that some of the Essenes could even foretell the future. What these early writers failed to realize was that there were several Essene communities, and it was the members of a small mystical group at Mount Carmel who were intensely devoted and involved in bringing a Messiah to planet Earth. None of the writers apparently understood that the wisdom Anna shared with her daughter Mary and later with her grandson Jesus were profound spiritual teachings and initiations whose influence would help formulate later Christian belief. Within the pages of this book, you will come to know Anna in her role as headmistress of the Essene spiritual community at Mount Carmel, the secret enclave of the School of the Prophets, which allowed her to share her celestial knowledge with all those entrusted to her tutelage. An extraordinary woman, able to extend her physical life for over 600 years, Anna reveals the intimacy of the Essene community and their personal relationships against the backdrop of the Roman occupation of the Holy Lands. You will discover her unusual abilities and responsibilities, including the light conception and birth of Mary, and Mary's own light conception, birth, and upbringing of Jesus. This paranorma explaining what the Essenes had to do for Jesus, Mary Magdalene, and a host of other well-known disciples and helpmates of the Christ drama emphasizes their essential role in assisting Jesus to fulfill his part as the Messiah. We see how Jesus' resurrection allowed the formation of a church that deified Jesus as a savior, not as an Essene teacher and healer, who taught each person to express their own inner Christ. Thus, the growth of Christianity as both a theology and an organizational entity began, and Essenism was set aside. And I think this was a great disservice to us as people because, well, as it's explained in this book, the Essene community seems maybe not an easy way to live, but a beautiful way to live. It is interesting that until 1928, there was little information describing the Essene teachings for the contemporary public to read. Then a dedicated linguist and researcher named Edmund Bordeaux Seckley, PhD, Seckley, was able to find and translate a startling 3rd century Aramaic manuscript and Old Slavonic text. This material contained extensive information about an unusual spiritual group called the Essenes, focusing on their profound dedication to the health and healing practices as epitomized by Jesus. For 50 years, Dr. Zekeli continued his life work of translating and publishing these actual Essene writings in 26 different languages, mostly in small, inexpensive booklets. His work brought the Essene beliefs to greater world attention, and he was able to co-found an international Essene organization with 20th century mystic and Nobel Prize winner Romain Rolland. Even so, no particular mention was made of Anna and her daughter Mary in Dr. Sekeli's writings. Rather, it was the focus on Jesus' teachings and healing practices contained in the Essene Gospels that would now capture public attention. In one of his books, The Gospel of the Essenes, he related to the following prologue to the Essene worship. When God saw that his people would perish because they did not see the light of life, he chose the best of so that they might make the light of life to shine before the sons of men. And those chosen were called Essenes because they taught the ignorant, healed the sick, and gathered on the eve of every seventh day to rejoice with the angels. It was not until the 1930s and 40s in America, however, that the first fascinating description of the Essene community at Mount Carmel was revealed. Through his self-induced trance-like states, psychic Edgar Cayce discussed both Anna and the Essenes among his 14,000 readings. He described the Essenes as members of a small spiritual Jewish sect that began 100 years before Jesus' birth in the 2nd century BC and continued some 68 years after the crucifixion of Jesus and the destruction of the Jewish temple. Cayce's readings about the Essenes confirmed there was a definite connection between Jesus' family and friends and the Essene communities. After defining the term Essene as expectancy, Cayce clarified that divisions had arisen among the Jews into various sects such as the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and also to a small group called Essenes. This latter group represented the Jews who cherished individuals who had been visited by the supernatural or who had unusual experiences in their dreams, visions, or inner voices. Cayce reported that these designated Essenes were an outgrowth of the teachings of Melchizedek as propagated by Elijah, Elisha, and Samuel, and that they consequently offered themselves as channels to receive spiritual information of divine origin. They joined together in a community of love and devotion, living a holy life of performing good deeds, honoring women equal with men. Above all, the Essenes believed in a divine plan for human evolution and deliberately prepared themselves to be worthy of hosting a Messiah in the world. Mr. Cayce specifically mentions Anna as being in the Promised Land in the days preceding and just following the entrance of the Prince of Peace into the physical world. He describes her as being a seeress and prophetess among an organization that could interpret time and place according to the stars and could calculate numerological effects upon physical life. She was apparently highly regarded among the Essenes and initiated innumerable people, including the 12 maidens, whose purity was high enough to receive the light conception energies needed to conceive the Messiah. Anna herself birthed Mary via the light conception process and also helped Mary do the same. In this way, and many others, she was a holy woman actively involved in the preparation of the Messiah's arrival. It is fascinating that part of what Mr. Cayce's readings described would be physically discovered in Israel in 1947. Indeed, because of the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls at Qumran, Israel, archaeologists have uncovered a female skeleton there, just as Cayce's reading said they would. The scientific evidence corroborated Cayce's remarks that there really were Essenes and that the women were part of the community even at Qumran. It has taken nearly 2,000 years to find the Dead Sea Scroll evidence, proving that the Essenes really existed and that they played a dramatic role in human history. Like voices from the past, this 800-piece archaeological discovery in modern-day proves there were Essenes living in the community at Qumran. You may have heard or read about the Dead Sea Scrolls that are now considered the oldest biblical evidence in existence. If not, I recommend them as proof that the Essenes existed. However, they are primarily focused on the community at Qumran and do not necessarily identify the work of the Mount Carmel community. Among the treasure trove discovered in the jars found in the first explored cave near the former Qumran community, there were 7 nearly intact scrolls ready to translate. One of these was an entirely readable scroll containing the Old Testament scripture of the book of Isaiah that predated the earliest Jewish example of the same biblical source. So there was great excitement and fear among theologians and historians as to what this would mean to our present religious understandings. In brackets, it says, when I visited Jerusalem in 1984, a handsome building called the Shrine of the Book had been built to keep the scroll safe and to display the wonderful ancient Isaiah manuscript behind humidified glass in one continuous scroll all around the circular room. It was thrilling to see a piece of such ancient writing, even though I couldn't read the words. The curious part of this extraordinary find is that it has been a continuing and laborious translation process by many professionals of different nations and religions. Both the secrecy of the scroll's content and the lengthy process of translating the materials have caused scholarly outrage, accusations, and arguments worldwide, colored by competitive and often uncooperative attitudes among those involved. Nonetheless, today the public can finally read some of the translations of what the Essenes scribed those 2,000 years ago, including actual contents of some Gospels contained in the scrolls. Regrettably, the scrolls were not individually signed by their scribes. Neither was the location or date of their work given. So many mysteries still remain. For anyone interested, however, a profusion of information is available on this topic in books, in countless articles, and in over 19,000 website listings about the Dead Sea Scrolls. Wow, I did not realize that there were so many websites about the Dead Sea Scrolls, but it is very, very fascinating. In spite of all this information, I am saddened to say that nowhere in the Dead Sea Scrolls research have I seen mention of Jesus's grandmother Anna, and very little about his mother Mary. This suggests to me that the truth about the esoteric Essenes and Anna, who helped bring forth the Messiah, remains hidden in the earlier school of the prophets community at Mount Carmel. Perhaps through other inspired authors, including information contained in this volume, or from a still hidden archaeological find at Mount Carmel's physical site, we may finally know and appreciate what has gone before. In the meantime, the implications and meaning of the Essene topic invites us, these 2,000 years later, to interpret their historical and religious value, as always, by our own individual opinion, perception, and conclusion. It is our hope in presenting this book about Anna and the Essenes that you may find something inspiring that raises your consciousness and gives you courage and commitment to fulfill the particular soul purpose you wish to complete. If the material we share gives you new insight and increased willingness to be the finest spiritual human that you can be, then we rest content. Before I go, I would like to leave you with one short commentary from a real scroll fragment taken from the Essene book of Revelation. I have reached the inner vision, and through thy spirit in me, I have heard thy wondrous secret. Through thy mystic insight, thou hast caused a spring of knowledge to well up within me, a fountain of power pouring forth living waters, a flood of love and all-embracing wisdom like the splendor of eternal light. Virginia Essene. Chapter 1. A letter from Anna of Mount Carmel. My dear friend, I bring you greetings of love and peace this day. I am Anna, also known as the Mother of Mary and the grandmother of Jesus. The fact that you are reading this letter as an introduction to my story is something of a miracle, for I send this message to you across great spans of time and space. And yet I am here, closer than you might think. I extend to you a personal invitation to come and embark on a journey with me that will follow the hidden initiatory path that my family and I walked 2,000 years ago. Our meeting and travels together will be accomplished through your imagination as you read the pages upon which I reveal myself. The only difference between my path and yours today is that your present daily life is the temple and mystery school, and you are your own master teacher and guru. Then, when you come together in masterful equality, the power of your individual influence can be amplified through beneficent group intention. I offer you my version of a complex, compelling, and life-transforming story among many that presents Jesus, the human and life, the Christ, along with the circuitous path that leads us to meet with the Christ face to face. Much will be revealed about the ancient Essene initiations that I mastered. The same initiations I facilitated for Mother Mary, Yeshua ben Joseph, which is Jesus, that's his real name, Mary Magdalene, and others adepts who embodied and exemplified the Christ, or way of the teacher of righteousness, the way of rightful use of energy. I gave these wisdom and high alchemy teachings, internal energy practices, to many, and now I pass the secrets of physical and spiritual immortality, resurrection, and other mysteries onto you. This I do because you, my dear friend, have asked for freedom and empowerment. You are well prepared to use these gifts for the benefit of all as we move through a perilous passage during Earth's birth changes. I realize that times of irreversible change, as such as you are encountering right now in your world, can be harrowing to entrenched beliefs and dogmatic protocol that have previously pointed the way to God and how to relate to Him. I am available to meet you wherever you are. Then together we will travel to a meeting place where the known and unknown court one another and begin to merge. This mystical courtship of consciousness is a mysterious walk between the worlds. It is the rendezvous point where the intuitive, unconditional, loving, divine feminine is found. In her embrace, all polarities meet, heal into wholeness, and become empowered, balanced, and harmonious expressions of love. You may find that traveling with me involves becoming something of a metaphysical sleuth, digging, probing, exposing, examining, and offering up the old cosmological creator, creation, and savior, victim, tyrant paradigms to a clearer light. Understand, my friend, my purpose in bringing greater clarity to the path that the Christ initiate takes is not to contend or to prove that I know the truth about what really happened 2,000 years ago, nor is it my intention to make another's viewpoint wrong. With much soul-searching, I look out upon the great vistas of the earth's historical landscape. I see a wilderness riddled with endless rounds of suffering and littered with tattered, dramatic scripts. As I feel humanity's heartache, I ask these poignant questions. Are we finished with our gathering of wisdom through duality? God, I hope so. Have we had enough repetitions of our favorite melodramatic roles? Can we embrace both polarities as equally divine and know that God, Goddess expresses in all forms? Can we be content to simply rest in love, having known love's opposite? I give you my experiences in the context of the old esoteric hidden paradigm of 2,000 years ago. As we proceed together, I invite you to examine, question, and restructure all that I share with you in such a way that you feel acknowledged, empowered, and supported as you pass through the sometimes arduous Christ initiations that are occurring in your life, even as we speak. How do we go about restructuring paradigms that no longer serve us? First of all, an understanding of old belief structures, such as the one I present in my story, is required. Next, the vision of a new harmonious form of true individual and global empowerment is called forth and allowed to manifest. As these old and new paradigm lenses merge, important questions rise. What eternal principles empower life's greatest potential and provides a sense of continuity and stability during a time of great transition and change? Are there perspectives within the old way of relating to Creator and creation that enhance our collectively chosen vision? And what tenets of the past clearly do not work and what must be discarded? Allowing these questions to be our signposts, I invite us to have the courage to be simple, open-minded, optimistic, appreciative, and childlike adventurers. As we visit a broad spectrum of venues, topics, and perspectives, I would rather that we keep questioning as we go along, instead of taking positions that defend answers. Have we not had enough holy wars fought over right answers? I invite you to join me in a most timely exploration of these pivotal questions, trusting that the answers are already present, simply awaiting unveiling. I offer my story as a threshing board for winnowing the wheat of eternal wisdom and releasing useless, unencumbering chaff. I hold up a mirror to you so that you may behold yourself in greater clarity, knowing that you are the answer to your mind's most perplexing questions and the fulfillment of your heart's deepest longing. Please note that I address you as my friend instead of my child, because now is a time of empowerment in which you and planet Earth are passing through a rite of passage and a coming of age. While I've played a maternal role for eons in the affairs of humanity, I desire that we meet this day as peers and friends. You have matured sufficiently so that childish temper tantrums and adolescent power games no longer hold your interest. While I gladly offer you my unconditional maternal love, comfort, and example, it is time for you to be your own Messiah. We have heard each other's requests to meet, and so it is that I will come to your abode where we will embark on our journey without distance. Its location does not matter, whether in a secluded mountain hermitage, austere desert cave, monastery, sophisticated urban apartments, city ghetto, prison, or sprawling suburban estate. As long as you meet me in your feelings of the present moment. Likewise, my appearance is of little importance. Any caring, strengthening image you may have of me can serve as a sense of initial connection. I assure you, you will recognize me as you see me across the threshold of your open door. My preference is that you might eventually come to know me as I am, beyond all myth images, would distance me from you in a hierarchical manner, or that might perpetuate our old dysfunctional relationships. Remember this, my friend, it is not my story's cast of characters that is important. It matters little that you know who I have been, even though I have served as an emissary of the celestial realms involved in the original creation of this planet, and my incarnations representing the Divine Mother have been numerous. I would have you know that my journey with you and this beloved jewel of the heavens, Earth, has bequeathed with me great treasures of compassion and wisdom. Neither is my version of the Christ story important, nor is any contending to prove it right or wrong. What is infinitely more important is the life-transforming and enhancing energy of love that is carried within and beyond my words. Although I have made my ascension, I have freely chosen to return into the earth plane from time to time so that I can continue to participate in Earth's evolution. My profound love for every particle and expression of life moves me to remain close. I have returned at this time so that I might take this long-awaited and most extraordinary journey with you. This I do not as a sacrifice, but because I deeply know that my complete union in God is inseparable from yours and that of Mother Earth's. It is reward enough to know that my words have catalyzed your memory of us walking this way before, dreaming our vision of a new earth, and that our love has brought us together again. We can be comforted in knowing that all our adventures, both past and future, have prepared us for this consummating finale we promise to celebrate. I gladly serve you as a paradigm shifter, life coach, midwife, and as a very accessible friend. I accompany you side by side on the path that leads to the knowing that you are the beloved Christ you seek. I offer you my hand in full fellowship so that we can remember the enduring thread of light that is the path that weaves all life together into a seamless, ever-changing, impeccable tapestry that reveals Mother, Father, God's infinite love and grace. Regardless of its name, that eternal light reveals your destination to be closer than any limiting thought you may think. You, my eternal friend, are the path, the light, and the way. Let the door to your Christ heart open. Enter in and know thyself. Enjoy your homecoming journey of remembrance. Anna. Chapter 2. Anna comes forth near Bethlehem. Ah, my beloved friend, we are together at last, just as I promised before you took this incarnation. You see, it is destiny and a deeply resounding resonance that draws us to be together this hour. You are coded in your DNA to hear my call. In truth, it is your own self who is calling you home, not me, although yourself is also who I am. You thought you would never find me, and I wondered when you would invite me in. But joyfully we are here together. You are sufficiently prepared for our journey. Fear not, you have everything required to move gracefully along the way. As we begin our journey, I will tell you and remind you often to breathe, relax, and open your heart. With the turning of the pages, you may move more deeply into a greater awareness of yourself. There may be a sense that your experience of present and past time is blending and merging. With this shift in your perception, it is possible that your imagination will use my words to actively evoke emotions of all kinds. I recommend that you breathe, open your mind and heart, and become receptive to your internal experience as my words move upon your soul. If you are resisting your feelings that may come with the words, images, and remembrances, there could be some discomfort. My story, in a sense, is the journey perilous taken by the Grail Knights. Remember this, my friend. You determine the timing and the pace of our mutual adventure. One of the requirements I ask of you, as I suggested in my letter, is to be willing to let go of any preconceived notions that you may have of me or the characters represented in my story. First of all, I suggest that you remove me from any pedestal that you might have placed on me as Saint Anne. I do not consider myself a saint. That exalted station distances me from you. I am here. I am your friend. Secondly, allow the possibility that I have lived far longer than you have ever likely considered possible. To those I knew intimately, I revealed myself as an immortal who maintained a physical body, albeit with some changes, for over 600 years. I tell you this at the outset so you can relax into my unfolding story as it becomes increasingly complex. The third requirement I ask of you to understand is that I am not above human discord. I felt and came to understand the extreme polarities of the human condition and human emotion because I chose to experience life's full spectrum. I immersed myself into the physical plane, as does any soul who desires to attain self-mastery. There were times of exquisite beauty and ecstasy. There was also severe tribulation and heartbreak. In truth, beloved, my physical life was a little different than yours, except that my long years in the same body was something you have not yet experienced. I share this with you so that you may come to know that you can also accomplish all that I did and even more. Anna continues. So just in brackets, it says, for purposes of simplification, the commonly used Gregorian calendar will be used for dates instead of the Hebrew calendar. It was in December of the year 612 BC that a child had been born in the village of Etam, just 3 miles south of Bethlehem in Judea. A descendant of the tribes of Judea, Levi, and Joseph, this child was named Hannah, after the mother of Samuel the prophet. Her birth took place about 358 years after the reign of David the king and some 110 years after the kingdom of Israel had been conquered and carried away into captivity by the Assyrians. Hannah was the physical aspect of my multidimensional soul who prepared the body through which I, Anna, chose to re-enter the drama of earth on the 23rd day of May in the year 596 BC. And a sore drama it was, for Babylon was now coming forth to rule the hearts of men and women who had forgotten their innocence before the Lord. In 597 BC, while I still abided in the light realms shortly before I requested permission from the councils of light for my return to earth, the Babylonian soldiers of King Nebuchadnezzar swept through Etam. They laid siege to Jerusalem for the second time and carried away thousands of hostages into captivity. It was in May of the following year, during a near-death experience, that Hannah and I voluntarily exchanged places through a process of blending and merging, which I will now briefly explain. You may well ask, well, Why would an adept such as I choose to come into a challenging circumstance like Hannah's? While you may perceive tribulations as unpleasant, even dangerous, the opportunity for expansion and empowerment of consciousness is greatly enhanced. Please allow me to explain this easier said than done answer more fully. Consider the possibility that an oversoul level exists where many aspects of consciousness focus collectively. Here, a much broader perspective offers the possibility of assessing many different timelines, realities, and dimensions. Within this holographic realm of consciousness, there is an awareness of simultaneous interactive experiences functioning together with every plausible cause and effect. For such a place, it is easy to view the potentials that will facilitate the greatest growth and evolution for the interconnected wholeness of life. Although the painful growth of experiences of human life may seem unbearable on a personal level, the end result fulfills a benevolent creator's desire for ever-expanding personal growth. As you are learning, the ultimate purpose of life is to know itself as love. Rather than feeling hopeless and powerless, you can choose to realign with your soul's original intention and recreate your present challenges into a more harmonious and joyful design. In the more coherent and refined realms of consciousness, the highest possible outcome is always chosen. An impeccable blueprint is securely held in place within the blissful realms of sound and light. In every moment, there is an opportunity to remember your soul's empowered design and to receive guidance from a more inspired choice. So it was with my experience as Hannah. As all factors, including genetic potentials, were considered from the oversoul perspective, a choice was made to project an aspect into the earth plane. You might think of this aspect, the personality called Hannah, as a facet of the Anna oversoul, or group soul collective consciousness, immersed in the illusion of separation. Hannah's limited point of view veiled her awareness of having made a choice to incarnate, as well as her true relationship to her Anna oversoul. Nevertheless, the connection was already there. Although the potential for consciously co-creating the highest outcome or destiny through her free will choices was available to Hannah. You have heard stories of individuals who died, went into the light, and upon regaining consciousness, had a greater awareness and faith in their creator source. Such ones often return with many more abilities, even miraculous powers than they had before they died. So it was with Hannah as I came forth. When she was out of body, Hannah awakened and remembered her pre-incarnation choices. These choices were: prepare a physical body that could hold specific DNA coding, live in a precise geographical location and time period, and have experiences that will provide a strong foundation for self-mastery. All of these choices would fulfill an even greater purpose at the appropriate timing. Just as we had agreed at the precise moment of her awakening, even though she seemed to be dying, there was a powerful downloading and merging of Hannah's human consciousness with the Anna oversoul consciousness. Understanding Hannah's relationship to her oversoul could assist you to make a deliberate connection with your own oversoul or higher self through meditation and other methods for enhancing consciousness. With this preliminary explanation about why Hannah and I, her higher self called Anna, exchanged places, let us return to my story. I now found myself in Hannah's body, disoriented and near unto death from the wounds and infections that occurred during childbirth. There happened to be an old seeress named Naomi, who heard the mewing cries of my newborn while giving oxen, camels, donkeys, and goats their ration of water and feed. These were corralled in pens and caves behind the wayside inn, where her son-in-law presided over guests. She ran for the help of a midwife who lived nearby, and together they quietly and gently washed and restored my infant and me to health. Naomi then took me into her humble abode next to the inn, when I remained until my child could walk. She asked after me, who was I? What had befallen me that I would choose to be alone without adequate shelter for the bringing forth of my labors in childbirth? I was hard-pressed to remember right away. For many days I was delirious, and the suckling of my child the only thing I knew how to do. I was young of body as I looked upon my form, perhaps 16 at the most. With patient understanding, Naomi nursed my mind and body. She knew the human psyche, could read my palms and face, could look into the past and future, and could commune with my soul across time and space. Thus this dear one read my book of life, and though she did not know, as one who is an adept, her intuition was highly developed. Over the following weeks, she and I began to solve the mystery of why I had chosen to be alone within a stable cave to bring forth my child. Over the next few months, I, Anna of the higher realms of light, and the embodiment of Hannah merged as one. As I grounded into the simpler tasks of caring for my baby daughter and assisting Naomi with the affairs of her hearth, my memory slowly returned. I recovered quickly once I got my bearings, for indeed the energies I brought were of a much higher dimension. Naomi and I gradually pieced together the story of Hannah and how she had come to be with child, and I was then able to heal the wounds that tore at her heart and soul. Briefly now I will tell you the story, though upon the details I shall not linger. Several weeks before her scheduled wedding, Hannah and her childhood sweetheart, Thomas, came together in the heat of their youthful passion, and Hannah conceived in her womb. They held secret their tryst. However, before a marriage ceremony could take place, Thomas was captured and carried away. Soldiers of Babylon poured into the villages, taking women and children hostage. Many men lost their lives trying to protect home and family. Those who resisted were brutally killed. The remainder was taken into captivity. The blood and carnage that spilled upon the ground were raw and devastating. Hannah was attending to the care of her two younger brothers while her parents were away gathering food and water. The soldiers found her and her brothers lying huddled beneath their parents' bed. They tore the two boys from her arms and killed them mercilessly, while forcing Hannah to watch. Something in her mind gave way. Hannah would never be the same. Then, after taking their pleasure at the expense of her body and soul, they laid her aside, bruised, unconscious, and wasted. She lay on the muddy street while they set her childhood home on fire. Thinking her dead from a blow to her head, they walked away. At that point, Hannah was lifted up into the celestial realms, where she met her oversoul, who told her that her body could now serve as a vehicle through which miracles would occur to lift from its dark night. So she and I, who were aspects of the same oversoul, communed, and she agreed to allow the higher dimensional aspect of her soul, which I am, to come into her physical form at a later date. Thus it was in those days of the second Babylonian siege of Jerusalem that I inherited the lot of Hannah, who was orphaned, widowed, stripped of all worldly possessions, and left behind by the Babylonians as one who was dead. Returning to consciousness, Hannah suddenly found herself in the position of an outcast, the poorest of the poor, even though she had been born into the royal lineage of and house of David. Her mind was besieged by demons. Most of those who would have sheltered her had been carried away, and those relatives of a higher class who remained in Etam scorned her as one defiled, justifying their indifference by the law of Moses. Thus, wandering in the wilderness of her soul's dark night, Hannah carried Thomas's secret child until the appointed hour, when her purpose for being would be fulfilled. During the remaining months of pregnancy, we continued to commune and merge in the higher dimensions. As the babe grew within Hannah's womb, the young mother received comfort and increasing self-awareness from her oversoul's deep caring. When her labor began, I, Anna, incarnated fully into Hannah's embodiment through the crown. I entered into the body just as the child came forth. I named my little one Ariana, a golden gift of light. From the great mother was she. Her little face shone with the brilliance of the sun, and her large brown eyes held the twinkle of starry reflected seas. Her personality was almost always serene and calming. Ariana's presence was a blessing through all the days she lived near me. During the 13 years after her birth, I walked from place to place within the villages of Etam and Bethlehem, offering myself to households to be hired and taken in. There were many families that required one such as I, who knew something of midwifery, medicinal herbs, and the care of small children, and how to create a peaceful sanctuary within an orderly home. During the 13 years Ariana and I lived within the vicinity of Bethlehem, I met with several wise teachers who were able to recognize my unusually high energy. Some knew me better than I knew myself at the beginning of my re-entry into the earth plane, for it requires a period of time to make the necessary attunements, adjustments of mind and body, and transmutations of karmic patterns within cellular memory before the higher consciousness can fully be present in awareness. This is also true for every soul who comes through the birth canal, and for the few who walk in, as I did. It is no different except that the body is already fully developed and there are fewer veils. I would have you know that my teachers were among an ancient order that lived in secluded hermitages, secreted away in the hills, and among the populace of towns and cities. These obscure mystics recognized one another, even though they usually appeared as quite ordinary to the uninitiated. It took several years of probationary effort on my part and the patient understanding of my mentors to lift the veils of forgetfulness I had inherited, so that I could remember more fully why I had come again. So that's the end of chapter 2, and I'm going to leave it there because we've already gone to an hour. Thank you for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed it so far. And next time we catch up, we will be reading chapter 3, the Essenes of Jerusalem and Mount Carmel. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. See you next time.